Hey everyone, welcome to the Generation Y Conservative Podcast. I'm glad that you could join us tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about a mix of stories, actually. We have a good mix of political stories. We're also going to be talking about something about talking to your babies before you change your diapers and asking permission. We have a really neat political ad for a guy running for governor down in Kansas. We're also going to be talking about what happens when in-game currency for something like World of Warcraft reaches more value than what your country has because of the currency rates and everything. And that's ties into socialism a little bit. We're also going to be talking about some indoctrination in schools. Obviously, there's two stories on that. It's pretty interesting stuff. We're also going to be updating you on some of the stories that we went over last week. We have an update on the Boy Scout story where they changed their name to Scouts now because they're including girls as well. What happened over the weekend with that was huge. And we're also going to go back to Keziah Daum, who was accused of cultural appropriation with her Chinese prom dress. Well, The Atlantic, which is a very progressive liberal news source, wrote an article that kind of backs up Keziah and might shine some light on things. And in our main story tonight, we're actually going to be talking about UC Berkely and a report that they came out with on free speech on their campus and kind of the hypocrisy behind what they're doing out there. We're going to talk about these topics and more. This is the Generation Y Conservative Podcast. All right, everyone, welcome to the Generation Y Conservative Podcast, where the truth is more important than agenda. If you're watching right now, you might be watching on Facebook Live, which we live stream the podcast every week. And by we, I mean me and Mike, or Mike and I. And Mike's not here. Unfortunately, he's mourning the loss of a family member this week. So our heart goes out to him and his family in regards to that. So he's taking the week off for the podcast, but that's okay. We're going to hold it up for him, and I'll conversate with myself because he likes to say I do that anyway. If you're following along, like I said, on Facebook Live, we live stream the podcast as a behind the scenes before it goes on to KLRN Internet Radio on Sundays and released on YouTube as well, but we'll get to that in a second. You can find me on the Generation Y Conservative on Facebook. It's a page. Hit like, subscribe to that, and get notifications so that you can be notified when we post stories that we find interesting. Typically, those end up being the topics that we talk about for the week anyway. Also, you can find me on Twitter at Gen Y Conservative without the E on the end and interact with me there. And most importantly, I believe, is on YouTube, where they're trying to shut down conservative voices all the time. Search for the Generation Y Conservative, hit subscribe, and you can also hit the bell for notifications on that when we publish videos. And that ranges all over the place, from the podcast that we release to movie reviews. The latest movie review that's up there right now is for the Avengers Infinity War. And it was a awesome movie. Go and see that, because within the next couple days I will also be releasing just a raw video of Mike and I talking about spoilers of the movie. So if you've seen the movie, you can actually go and watch that then and kind of get involved in the things that we like about it and the scenes that shocked us and things that happened. The upcoming reviews, we're going to be reviewing Deadpool 2, Solo, and Jurassic World is coming out as well. So those are reviews that you can look forward to as well. And we changed up the format of those reviews too, whereas we were talking at length between 15 minutes to a half an hour about the movies and kind of going half and half of our review of the movie and everything else, and then the second half would be the spoilers. Now it's down to a very short, digestible version of just going over the movie very quickly and our review of it and cutting it out there. And if we want to have a spoiler conversation from there, we can, but I think that people like the bite-sized stuff a little bit more anyway. Also, to that point, we're also coming out with videos this summer, hopefully. If you have been watching along with the page on the Facebook page and everything, or my Instagram, but that would have to be personal, you Already know that next week on Saturday, May 19th, I will be one of the main speakers at the Second Amendment rally in Copley, Pennsylvania at Relic Hunter Firearms. You can come out and see me there and say hello. Certainly, we're going to put that video as well as some of the other speakers, hopefully as well, onto the YouTube page too. The local radio station, The Hawk, is going to be there covering that, and possibly some other media as well, trying to catch us in saying something that will make headlines, I'm sure. But I have a lot to say about the Constitution, which is what I'm going to be personally talking about, the importance of the Constitution, what the Constitution means, what the Second Amendment means, how it protects all the other amendments, and where we go from here. Okay, so it's going to be a really interesting talk, and I have a lot of things I'm pulling into it. Very interesting topic, and I believe that most of America, even people on the right, have the Constitution wrong and what it actually is in place for. So it should be a good time, and I would encourage you, if you live in Eastern Pennsylvania, Jersey, I have a couple people from Jersey that actually might be coming out, anywhere in the tri-state area, if you're looking for one of the Second Amendment rallies to participate in, certainly come out to Relic Hunter Firearms. That's one where you can actually meet me, and I'd be happy to hang out with people afterwards as well. We got a lot of really good speakers that are going to be there. Let's see. Along with that, so in regards to the YouTube and why I bring that in with the YouTube as well, we're in talks right now to actually work with Gerard, the owner of Relic Hunter Firearms, to do a weekly video segment on guns that he has for sale, and we'll be shooting them in the shooting range and showing you what they are, what they're capable of, and all the details about them, and how you can get your hands on one. And we'll feature a gun or a firearm each week, and it should be really interesting. So we're going to start that up soon as well too, and we'll be talking to him about that and getting those details pressed out. So that should be really cool. All right, so getting into the topics tonight, let's start off with some technology. If you've been following along, if you're a big technology nerd like myself, you may be familiar with the fact that virtual reality and augmented reality and all this crazy stuff has been taking off lately. And personally for me, I can't wait. The one complaint I've had so far within the last couple of years is they keep on coming out with all these virtual reality headsets and everything, far surpassing what we had as a kid. I think it was Virtual Boy or something like that for the Game Boy. It was like a red laser kind of thing. It was crazy. But in regards to the ones that have been coming out, they've needed a powerful PC with a processor that can really handle all the stuff going on within the VR headset, and you were always attached by wires. No matter how good the product was, you were always attached by wires, except for maybe if you downloaded an app on your phone for virtual reality and you plugged your phone into a headset and you could look around. Those are pretty cool too if you ever get a chance. Kids love that stuff. But for the most part, it's been limited as to what you can do. Well, Oculus is, I think it's actually owned by Facebook. Facebook bought into that a couple years ago now at this point. But Oculus Rift was one of the latest models to come out for virtual reality, and now they're starting to release one called the Oculus Go. So it says on here, Oculus Go, this is from IGN, one of the websites I follow for video games and stuff like that. Oculus Go requires nothing to function aside from your head. You don't need to keep it attached to a powerful, expensive gaming PC. You don't need to insert the right type of phone to power it. The Oculus Go is neither PC VR nor phone VR. It's a standalone device that and may very well be remembered as the first VR headset to bring virtual reality to the masses. So this is actually really cool. It says it's easy to set up, it's comfortable to wear, it's immersive, and it's cheap. For now, there are two Oculus Go models, the 32 gigabyte model for $199. The Oculus Rift was a couple $100. Like it was, I believe it started at $450, $500. And that was just the base model. So they're really up in this game. Prices are going down. The more technology comes out, this is what you see. I mean, okay, so this TV that I have right here, I've had this since I got married. So it's been, it's actually right before we got married. So it's been a little over 10 years. This TV is like a 30-something inch flat screen that costs somewhere around $700. For $700, you could get like a 4K television today that's a 50-inch, 60-inch, 70-inch TV. it's crazy. So as technology progresses and as the technology just becomes abundant and everything, those prices drop. So this is good news for all of us technology nerds. So anyway, $199 for the 32 gigabyte model. 64 gigabyte model is going for $249. And they said that they reviewed the 32 gigabyte Oculus Go. It's half the price of the Oculus Rift and twice as easy to use. This thing comes with a little handset and everything, whereas the Oculus Rift has two handsets to control where you're walking and everything. This one only requires one, so it's a simplistic version. They said you have to get used to that, but as soon as they make this available so that you can actually hook this up to the Xbox or the PlayStation or anything like that, where it's a wireless situation, this is where the things get really interesting, and it's going to be really cool. So if you want to check out the review for the Oculus Go, instead of stealing their thunder, I would actually encourage you to go to IGN and check that out and check out their review. They seem to really like it, and they seem to think that this is the beginning of the wireless version of virtual reality and bringing this to the masses. If you've never experienced virtual reality, it's actually really cool. It's kind of one of those scary domains that we're starting to get into, because you see people so attached to their social media and everything that they don't want to escape that world, and they would rather interact with people there than in the real world. We're seeing teens growing up right now. I'm getting off onto a little political tangent, but we're seeing teens right now that have no interpersonal skills when they get out into the real world or anything, and are unable to actually speak with people because they're so used to typing in and talking to people online with everything through Snapchat, through Instagram, through Facebook, through Twitter and everything, that it's seeping into the culture so completely that one of our family members is actually a college professor for English, and she says that the college students are writing the shorthand type text message stuff into their English papers, and they just don't know how to interact in the real world and be professional about things. Like, this is probably going to be the next big thing that colleges have to teach, is real world experience. But unfortunately, last week we were talking about cry closets for people taking exams and everything. So I don't really hold too much hope out for that in regards to really thinking that we're going to get anywhere with colleges on teaching real world applications with things. All right, so that is the Oculus Go. You can go check that out on IGN's website. Now, one of the things, there's so much wrong with this video. Let's just go right to the video, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Yeah. How young are some of the children you talk to?
We work from children from 3 years old. We work with parents from birth.
From birth?
Yeah. Just about how to set up a culture of consent in their homes. So, I'm going to change your nappy now. Is that okay? Of course, a baby's not going to respond, yes, Mum, that's awesome. I'd love to have my nappy changed. But if you leave a space and wait for body language and wait to make eye contact, then you're letting that child know that their response matters.
What? We're going to change a nappy now. By nappy, she means diaper, of course. So this woman is literally saying that as parents in this progressive culture, as you're hovering over the child to get them used to it, you should be asking them if it's okay to change your diaper now. I don't know if you can hear me over the screaming that you're doing there because you're sitting in your crap, but is it okay if I change your diaper right now? Okay, settle down. I'm looking for an answer. Stop the crying. Stop the crying. This is absolutely ridiculous. So they're setting up this culture of that you have to ask permission for everything. I have an idea. How about you become an adult, be the adult in the situation, and take hold of it, okay? In the case of a baby, you have to be the parent. You're not going to wait for a little wink and cry or like a little bubble, like a gas bubble or something. It doesn't matter which end it's coming from. For there to be an acknowledgement that it's time for you to actually change their diaper. They're sitting there, they're laying there crying, screaming that they're in their own urine and feces. That's why they're screaming and crying. I'm pretty sure that's why they're screaming and crying, is an acknowledgement that they want you to change their diaper, okay? This woman with her pink hair, I know that probably offended some of the people I'm friends with that have crazy hair dye styles, is there with this crazy notion that you have to, you know what this feeds into? A couple months ago, we were talking about this as the whole Me Too movement was really taking off. We're talking about how now there was this cultural movement to have people in college acknowledge on a 5-minute interval basis for consent for sex, right? So every 5 minutes, the guy is supposed to be saying, oh, "Are you still okay with this? Are you okay with us doing this?" Every 5 minutes. Talk about a buzzkill if you're actually, not that I'm promoting premarital sex, but if you're having premarital sex, I can imagine that's not going to go off too well. Asking every 5 minutes, is it okay? Are we doing okay now? Okay. It's so ridiculous. So this was actually an Australian woman who was going over this, and she's trying to set up this culture where as the child progresses and gets older, that in order to enter a personal space of your child, you have to ask permission to do things and intervene in their lives. No. You have to be a parent and you have to control the situations. Otherwise, they don't learn. This is the whole, you have to stop a kid before they run out in the street so they don't get hit by a car. Excuse me, before you run out in the street, do you want to hold my hand? Okay, you got hit by a car already. Sorry, not going to work anymore. It's stupid. Anyway, moving on. So she didn't even look too happy even. All right, let's get an update on the Boy Scout situation. So last week, for quite a while now, it started with this Sydney girl back earlier last year who was saying that she was on a mission to get girls to be able to join the Boy Scouts because she was unhappy with the Girl Scouts and what their functions were versus what Boy Scout functions were. And she wanted to have the girls be able to do the same kinds of things. I believe her father was a scout leader, so she was an honorary Boy Scout and was able to do things. We're joking around about how, okay, this is hopefully never happens, and within a year, wouldn't you know, they started making all these announcements. The Boy Scouts just started caving in with everything. Now, one person actually, Genesis, who gets involved lately on my Facebook account, was saying that the numbers for Boy Scouts have actually been dropping, and that's true. But that's also because of our culture, okay? We've been talking a lot about how this ridiculous notion by the left of toxic masculinity and how they promote this feminized version of men that are supposed to be these emotional messes and not be tough at all on situations or take charge. They say they want that until they get that, and you're dealing with an estrogen level man in the house. Doesn't make sense, and they're not going to be happy unless there's some kind of mental instability with the whole relationship as a whole. But with this whole toxic masculinity idea, you have a culture that's promoting the idea that boys don't need to learn to be men anymore. And if you actually look at what the Boy Scouts has done for America as a whole, I mean, you're talking about, Brent's been on the podcast before. Him and I were in Cub Scouts together. That led to him being in Boy Scouts. That led to him being in the Army and serving in the Army and everything. There's a lot of Boy Scouts that go on with their survival skill sets and the principles and morals that they learn and get into our military and serve as the best soldiers that we have. You have some that become business leaders, political leaders and everything. But the fact of the matter remains that there's only so many different minds that get touched by either organizations or schools or parents or anything within that short period of time that you're a child, that we have this ability to mold the mindset into good morals and principles, so you don't end up with snowflakes and people protesting and going out and rioting and throwing Molotov cocktails through Starbucks window stores because they're not getting their way with an election. I mean, that is the result of trying to shy away from organizations like the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, for that matter. But instead, we've been getting so far away from this that you had that Sydney girl last year. She tried to get the girls in. Unfortunately, things have just gone out of control. We actually ended up doing that. Last week we talked about how the Boy Scouts is now changing their name to just the Scouts because they're having girls involved with the organization. The Girl Scouts over the last year have been saying, this is ridiculous. I can't believe that the Boy Scouts are fighting back on this. Basically saying the Boy Scouts should grow a set of balls. Who would have thought? The Girl Scouts actually end up having more balls on this situation than the Boy Scouts. But then the Girl Scouts are getting screwed over as well, because you have a certain section of the Girl Scouts that are leaving that and for the Boy Scout organization. And as we said in the last podcast, instead of fixing what's broken, which may be the Girl Scouts, instead of fixing that and saying, hey, we're losing membership because girls actually want to be doing some of the survival skill set stuff and tying knots or whatever the heck they were interested in. They want to be doing that kind of stuff that the Boy Scouts are doing. Let's bring in some professionals and try to do that on our side too, along with all the other stuff that we're doing. But instead, you go against the mentality of what we've been talking about for years now, the old saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. The Boy Scouts wasn't broken. It was losing membership, yes. But maybe they should have adapted to the times as well and brought up with the technology age and made a social media presence to get more membership and get them involved in some newer techniques and still hang on to the survival skill sets as well as the morals and principles and everything else that go along with it. There was a way to promote that and keep that membership, but to change everything to allow girls, and it just doesn't make any sense. Well, now we're starting to see the ramifications of that with an update this week. 425,000 drop out of the Boy Scouts. Okay, so almost 500,000 within 1 week after the name change. Now this has actually a lot to do. It says this is from FaithWire. The 118-year-old organization, the Boy Scouts of America, recently announced that they are changing the name of the group to be more welcoming and inclusive to all youth. Early last year, the Boy Scouts group announced that they would start letting girls into their organization, and in 2019 would allow them to become Eagle Scouts. Last week, the Boy Scouts of America released a statement explaining the name change, citing a campaign called Scout Me In. It's got to be Scout Me Out in this story. Many family members have been upset with the name change and the rule changes, as they believe it is wise to have the boys and girls separated. Yeah, come to think of it, going on camping trips out in the middle of the woods with teenage boys and girls, well, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, it's just survival skill sets, right? Only 1 week has passed since the Boy Scouts of America announced their name change, and already 425,000 boys have dropped out of the organization thanks to one large church cutting ties with the organization. This past Tuesday, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints announced that they were parting ways with the organization. They released a statement announcing that they would phase out all of this by December 31st of 2019. And their reasoning, along with their reasoning. The statement was issued by both the LDS Church and the Boy Scouts of America, in which the church stated that they need a more global approach as their membership was global. In this century of shared experience, the church has grown from a U.S.-centered institution to a worldwide organization with a majority of its membership living outside the United States. That trend is accelerating. The church has increasingly felt the need to create and implement a uniform youth leadership and development program that serves its members globally. In so doing, it will be necessary for the church to discontinue its role as a chartered partner with the Boy Scouts of America. And as we said last week, how about we call a new organization the Future Men of America that don't apologize for anything. So the Church of Latter-day Saints is is that what it is? Church of Latter-day, yeah. It's the LDS Church, is obviously the Mormon Church. So, are the 425,000 members that left the Boy Scouts all Mormon members? I don't really know, but you can be sure that within the first week of this happening, almost 500,000 Boy Scouts dropping out. That's a bigger membership loss situation than what they were dealing with before. So you didn't fix anything. You actually made things a lot worse. The other thing is, too, with this, if this is within the first week, this is only going to get worse. The Scouts, as it's now called, is going to see a massive dropout, and this is just the beginning of that. So keep an eye out. We'll keep on updating you on the situation as we hear more and more news. But in the meantime, almost 500,000 in 1 week is quite the punch to the pants, as they would say, for the Boy Scouts of America. Okay, this article was sent to me by one of my friends and someone who has actually co-hosted the podcast with me before, Colin, or as I call him, Goody. He shared this article with me, which is we both thought was hilarious. World of Warcraft gold is worth 7 times as much as Venezuela's real currency. That's what socialism will do for you, as they're eating the zoo animals down there. As a matter of fact, that was months ago, so the zoos are probably not populated anymore because of them eating everything. World of Warcraft is by far, this comes from Gamer Rant, by the way, World of Warcraft is by far one of the most popular and best-selling online games in the world, as the World of Warcraft game world is so elaborate to the point that it has its own fluctuating in-game currency. The game's virtual currency can be exchanged for in-game and real-life items such as World of Warcraft tokens, and the prices of these items vary based on the status of real-world currencies, to the extent that some might even consider World of Warcraft gold to be its own official currency. That's the borderline between, it's the other side of the fence from cryptocurrencies at this point. In-game currencies are often weighed up against real-world currencies, as one can use real-world money to buy in-game currency, especially in World of Warcraft. For Venezuela last year in August, the value of World of Warcraft's virtual gold was as much as double the Venezuelan bolivar. But recently, it has been shown that virtual Azeroth gold is valued as much as 7 times more than the bolivar, and this number might be even higher in terms of the currency's black market value. If one considers the exchange rate between the US dollar and the bolivar, $1 is currently equal to 68,915 Venezuelan bolivar. Additionally, the price of one World of Warcraft token can currently be bought at $20 or sold for a fluctuating amount of in-game gold, which is currently at 203,035 gold pieces per token. So based on these calculations, $1 therefore costs 10,152 in-game gold. So if you've been following along with what's going on in Venezuela, you're talking about over the last year, the country that Bernie Sanders has been upholding as the great country where socialism is working, that this is one of those countries where maybe you shouldn't have used that as such a great example for socialism, because down there the government's failing, there's riots all over the place, there's they're revolting against the government all the time, the people don't have anything to eat, the shelves are bare, and these people are literally outside eating from garbage. And as I just mentioned before, they were actually going into the zoos, hunting down the exotic animals in the zoos. It's not funny, but it's crazy, and killing the animals for food, because these people have absolutely nothing anymore. That is the picture of socialism right there for you, okay? This is what happens when you follow a socialism system. You can't sustain it. Venezuela survived for a long time off of the oil that they were selling and producing, but that time has come and gone because the situations outside the U.S. became so drastic over the last couple decades that we had to start looking in our own country for oil. We had all these environmentalists saying the world's running out of oil and everything, and then we find something under North and South Dakota, a huge oil field, oil up in Alaska, oil down in Texas. We have enough of our own oil that if we actually got into the actual production of it, we could sustain it ourselves, which is why you start seeing things like the Middle East start coming back on their prices and everything. That's a whole economic thing that you can do. But the fact of the matter is, when you are under socialism, in-game currency can be worth more than your actual currency in your country. And that is the next political campaign ad for Bernie Sanders, hopefully. All right, Brant was on. I didn't see it until just now. He said, Trail Life USA is the new Boy Scouts, faith-based and only for boys. That's a good recommendation then. He said, this is not about girls not being able to do what boys in the BSA does. It's about liberals hating the idea that there are organizations that separate sex. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, this is all about, like we said last week, it's about the patriarchy. It's about bringing down the patriarchy. They don't want men to have their own little boys group for anything, because they keep on pushing the false narrative of separate class system for men and women, like women making 75 cents on the dollar for that a male makes in the workplace. Not true. It's been proven not true over and over again. We've gone over the reasons on this podcast, in multiple podcasts, why that's not the case. But yet they still keep on perpetuating this lie because they want to keep on pushing this message that women are unequal to men, wear their pussy hats out in public, make a mockery of everything, and bring down toxic masculinity and the patriarchy, apparently. But what are they trying to do? The real purpose, the original purpose of feminism was the fact that they were trying to bring women to an equal level. For all honesty, right? Women were unequal at a certain point in time. And there are certain situations in, certain instances where that still exists and everything. But the purpose of feminism at that time was to bring that level equally. The type of feminism that we have today, especially in the United States, and it's seeping over into the European feminism, is this feminazi, is what we like to call it, where it's not about being equal anymore. Like, hey, we just want to be able to do the same things that you guys do. We want to earn the same thing that you guys do. It's, hey, men are bastards. Let's keep them down. Women power. Women can rule the world. Screw men. They do all this crap to us, and it's all about putting down men. In order to succeed, you have to put men down into their place and be better than them. And it's not even that you have to be better than them, it's that you have to be perceived as being better than them. And that is what modern feminism is all about. And that's just unfortunately the way it is. All right, speaking of feminism, well, creepy females at least. According to the Daily Wire, a female teen, dresses as a clown and stabs her boyfriend during sex. And she sent him a creepy text before the attack as well. And this is why you don't screw with clowns. I mean, come on. Since I've been a kid, It is one of the scariest TV movies and now movie and book and everything. You don't trust clowns. You don't trust clowns, people. That's all there is to it. A 19-year-old mother was sentenced. Oh, she was a mother. Oh boy, it gets better and better. A 19-year-old mother was sentenced to 11 years behind bars after dressing up as a clown and repeatedly stabbing her boyfriend during sexual intercourse. Zoe Adams stabbed her then boyfriend. It's crazy, it's not her current one. Then 17-year-old Kieran Bewick, after sending him a text stating that men are only as good as a human sacrifice, in quotations. Sounds like a feminist ideal right there for you. She said in the text message, "I don't think about males unless said male is strapped up and being used as a human sacrifice. You should be grateful you're not part of it." The duo were apparently engaged in some sexual fantasy of Adams in July of 2017 in Wigton, Cumbria. Bewick, who suffers from a fear of clowns, this sadistic bitch, was supposed to be tied up during the sex, but negotiated to have Adams only use a pillow to place over his face as she was dressed as a clown. During the trial, Adams claimed she didn't remember the encounter, but noted that her stabbing Bewick was an overreaction to him kissing her neck. You gotta watch out for these women. It's the men that are crazy, right? We gotta disband the Boy Scouts because the men are the toxic ones. Here we have a 19-year-old mother dressed up as a clown stabbing her boyfriend during sex because he kissed her on the neck. Okay, someone didn't go to Girl Scouts, obviously. Should have known. Should have been selling cookies. The 19-year-old reportedly whispered, "Trust me," to Bewick before repeatedly stabbing him in the chest, arm, and thigh with a 10-inch freaking knife. The teen almost died, suffering from a collapsed lung and pneumonia. Oh boy. There's an image of a woman soaked in blood with the caption, "Murder is like a bag of chips. You can't stop just after just one." This was also found on Adams' cell phone. Adams claims the image and her text to Bewick about men being a human sacrifice was a joke. How can you claim that after you tried to sacrifice the dude? Oh. I struggle with the knowledge that someone I genuinely cared about would do this to me, said a statement from Baywick. Just after I got out of the hospital, this thought played on my mind a lot. But having had time to think about it, I'm convinced that she planned it. It wasn't personal. She was going to do it to someone, and it just happened to be me. Strangely, that makes it easier to deal with. No, dude. Well, I was going to say you're going to have a hard time ever going to a circus again, but thanks to the far left, the circuses aren't even around anymore either. So congratulations. You don't really have to deal with clowns anymore anyway. All right, so last week we were talking about Keziah Daum, who is this teen who just recently went to prom and wore a Chinese dress. It was a beautiful dress. She looked great in it and everything. She posted it to Twitter. Professional pictures were taken, obviously, and all of a sudden this Jeremy Lamb tweeted out to her that she was culturally appropriating his culture, and it's not his culture is not her GD dress, basically. And it got like a couple thousand retweets. His tweet got a couple thousand retweets of support for that. And in the meantime, while that takes off, thankfully, Keziah didn't kowtow to the extreme left PC police and instead came out and said, I would wear it again. Thank God for people like Keziah. That's all I gotta say. Well, she got a lot of support. We certainly support her. I tweeted her today at her today with the video from the podcast from last week and everything. But some interesting revelations have come out since then. The Atlantic is a very liberal media source, and their article this week, published 2 days ago actually, is called "Every Culture Appropriates." Okay, and then the subtitle is, "The question is less whether a dress or an idea is borrowed than the uses to which it's then put." So in this, it goes over the fact that there's a lot to it. You can actually go and find the article if you want. But basically they were saying that the traditional Chinese dress that she wore at the time was actually culturally appropriated from Europe in order to bring the more European style into the Chinese culture as those two cultures started interacting more and everything. So the Chinese actually culturally appropriated that from Europe, which then Keziah and some other people have culturally appropriated into their prom. So the point that we were making last week is that you can't talk about cultural appropriation because it's everywhere. You can't get through your day without culturally appropriating something. You know, if you're going to eat Italian food, you better be Italian. If you eat Chinese food, you better be Chinese. If you're going to wear, what was it, Nike or Adidas or whatever the German company is, if you drive a Volkswagen, you better be German, you know? I mean, it's ridiculous to have all these standards for, this cultural appropriation nonsense. If nothing else, like I said, if you're going around putting up blackface makeup on to intimidate, or not to intimidate, to impersonate a black person, there's a problem with that. That's taking it and turning it and twisting it into something that's making fun of that culture. But if you are wearing something because you actually like it, it's actually celebrating that culture. And that's actually something else that we mentioned last week as well. China has actually come out, the Chinese media, and said, we support Keziah in this. We actually find it very positive for the Chinese culture that this girl finds our garments to be something that she wants to wear to prom. So it's been a really interesting development on this. You can actually go read the article. It's actually very interesting because they keep on going over all these different things as far as cultural appropriation. They go back into the history of the Chinese dress and what she was wearing, where it came from, and what the influence was. The article is actually from David Frum. He's a senior editor at The Atlantic. So look at that. He was actually a speechwriter for George Bush. So go figure. No, they probably hated publishing that on their liberal site. Okay, so now we are going to get into some more political topics tonight, now that we've gotten through our kind of potpourri topics. So to start this, what I actually wanted to do was show you a political ad from a guy that's running for governor down in Kansas that may be one of the best political ads that I've actually seen, and it's really unique and creative. So let's take a look at that.
There's a new day ahead for Kansas, a new era of growth, forged by a new conservative leader, Patrick Kucera.
This is your typical campaign ad. An ad where I talk to these seniors because, well, seniors vote. Where I walk with my sleeves rolled up with this guy just to show I'm down to earth. Where I laugh as I play a board game with my family. Read a book to these little kids. And overused political buzzwords like sustainability, community, and future. Now that's your typical campaign ad. But I am not your typical candidate. I'm a lot like you. I've never held office. I've never even run for office. You know, today I believe political experience is the worst kind of experience. And that's why I so strongly support term limits to get rid of career politicians in both parties. You know, politicians have made politics a production. And I've never known when a production can actually solve problems that we face today. When did a production in politics ever alleviate the pain that Kansas families are facing today? You know, I should know, I've been in the ministry for the last 30 years, been in business almost my entire life. And it's all about solving problems and helping people. I'm pro-life. I'm just like you in that I'm an outdoorsman. I love to hunt. I love to fish. As a matter of fact, I love to work hard because I have to. I've got 6 kids. Hey man, how you doing? Good to see you. You know, Mari and I married 27 years. We have 6 children, and I needed a revival of revenue myself. I remember when my children just needed $3, $13, and then as they grew, they needed $300 in junior high, and soon $3,000 for computers and cars in high school, and now they're in college, and it's like $30,000. Lord help me. You know, Kansas needs a revival of revenue, and Kansas families need a revival of revenue. And I'm running for governor because I do not see a candidate that has the entrepreneurial mindset for government and our educational system that's necessary for this 21st century economy we find ourselves in. You know what? I've got some big ideas for Kansas. I think we need to get flying again. And you know, if you're looking for a typical politician, I'm probably not your guy. But if you're looking for a visionary leader, a conservative that can really take Kansas where it needs to go, well then I hope when I'm in your town, you'll come find me and that I can meet you and that you will come onto my team. I'll be in your city soon. I'll see you on the road.
Patrick Kucera, if you're in Kansas, you should at least be looking into this guy, because the field for governor, I believe, started with about 18 candidates, kind of like the Republican primaries for our party when Trump jumped into the race and everything. I think there were about 18 candidates for our side then, too. But Kansas is seeing its largest influx of political candidates going for governor right now. And Patrick looks to be a good contender on this one. What I really personally like about this political ad is everybody hates political ad seasons, right? They come every couple of years. You're inundated. Thank God for we don't even have TV anymore, cable anymore. We just run off of Netflix and Hulu. But even on Hulu, we were getting political ads. That's why we upgraded to Hulu Plus so that we didn't have to see any more commercials at all. But it just gets to be so... You actually start to hate the candidates more because of their political ads that you're seeing all the time than actually, you know, getting a like for them. If there's one thing I've talked about over the past couple of years in regards to politics and political ads, I've always said, you know, enough with the attack ads. We have so much negativity in our world right now, especially within our country, and especially even boiled down more between political parties about this hatred for each other. I mean, it has literally come down to hatred. If you are not with me, you are against me. You are my enemy. And that is exactly what you're seeing from... We have it on our own side. When you were looking at the, you know, look at the never Trumpers versus the Trump supporters during the primaries and everything. It was within our own party. Then when Trump was elected, the left completely reversed their mind on, acceptance and tolerance and love and light and all this other stuff, and instead turned it to absolute just spitting vile hatred for Trump and his supporters, and screw them, they're a bunch of hillbilly pricks and they don't know what they're doing, they're destroying the country. Even he's going to start nuclear war, even though North and South Korea are crediting him for bringing them together, and we're seeing peace in the Middle East, for crying out loud. Like this couldn't go more wrong for Democrats at this point, for their outrage to shine a light on just how pathetic their views on things are. And I can tell you something before I get into any more on Patrick here. Let me promise you this. They were predicting for a couple weeks there that we were going to see a blue wave take over in the next midterm elections and everything, that a blue wave would be a response to the Trump administration and all the Republicans in Congress and everything, and that the Democrats would take over. And the Democrats are promising to reverse the tax cuts and tax things that Trump did and all of his decisions and everything. All the things that are promoting a healthy economy right now, getting jobs back into the country, bringing companies back into the country. The toughness of a bully, Trump, he is, okay? But I'm not putting him down for that. The fact that he has been a bully to bullies like Kim Jong-un and brought them to a negotiating table, whereas next month he's actually going to be meeting with Kim Jong-un after people were saying that they were going to be launching nukes at us because of the tension between the two. If we get a blue wave that they're now predicting is falling apart, by the way, into Congress to reverse all these decisions, you're going to see the economy go back into a collapsing state again. And I can't believe that the left buries their heads so far in the sand that they can't see the positive things that are happening. They're so likely to jump up and shout of these policies being racist or homophobic or sexist, and they say that. They jump to it. The media said this. CNN said that this is sexist, a sexist policy, and this is a racist policy of Trump and everything. Well, explain how it is. Give me an example. Because all I can see is black unemployment is at its lowest. Hispanic unemployment is at its lowest in decades. We're seeing jobs come back into America. We're seeing North and South Korea, of all places, start to negotiate with each other and end a Cold War between the two of them. You have the Prince of Saudi Arabia saying, hey, Israel, which we're making the embassy right now in Jerusalem, thanks to Trump, Israel has a place in this world. They deserve to have a country. They deserve the right to be in existence as a country over there. We didn't see this. You could talk all you want about how Obama went around and met with foreign leaders and everything on what we said always was an apology tour. I'm sorry America did this to you in the past. I should have gone right into the Obama impersonation. I'm sorry that the United States did such horrible things to you in the past. So he goes on this apology tour. At what point in time, as Kim Jong-un was threatening the U.S. or Assad or anything, remember the red line? Obama kept on saying, this is the red line in the sand. You better not cross that or there's going to be consequences. Okay, he crossed it. Now here's the new red line. There's going to be consequences if you cross that. He crossed it again. What the heck am I going to do? Kept on doing it. Didn't do anything about it because he pussyfooted around the issue. Never did anything like the previous president. Okay, this falls on Obama, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, and Clinton, and Hillary Clinton for that matter, for her time as Secretary of State. The fact that Kim Jong-un and his father kept on threatening the U.S. and every president so far up until Trump kept on kicking the can down the road. Okay, well, we're not going to do anything now because, this guy's crazy. You don't want to set him off or anything. Well, it took a bully to stand up to a bully. And that's exactly what we've always been saying. This whole toxic masculinity thing, it's starting to work a little bit, actually, in favor of Trump. So Trump stands up to North Korea, and you start to see actions being taken. And by actions, I mean negotiations. Anyway, I got way off topic. We were talking about Patrick there for a minute. running for governor down in Kansas. What I love about this is he doesn't take himself seriously in it. He is not attacking any other candidates in the political ad. He is he's making fun of the whole political situation. He's for term limits. He is an outsider. He has no political experience, just like Trump. And maybe that's what we are actually looking for. Everybody kept on jumping on, well, this is what happens, right in the beginning when everything was going wrong in the country, while we were dealing with the hurricane in Puerto Rico and in Texas and the wildfires in California and the all this other stuff going on and the riots, the Charlottesville incident and everything. All that was hitting all at the same time. And Puerto Rico's mayor or governor or whatever it is down there, that woman that wore the nasty t-shirt because she was hoarding the supplies that we were sending down there and saying that we weren't sending supplies. You haven't heard much from her lately. Are all pointing to Trump saying he's not doing enough while he's stretched out like no other president has been before. And we talked about that before. But the fact of the matter is, Trump's been getting things done. And this is coming from a guy that was originally a never Trumper. I was a Cruz supporter. Results are results. That is the one thing that drives the left crazy. Results, facts, and statistics, because they all work against them. But in this case here, maybe we need an outsider. The guy was a pastor, it seems, as well, or a minister of some sort, and is for term limits. There's nothing more important right now than trying to institute term limits for these politicians that are making careers of it. John McCain, I'm not making light of his situation. We're going to talk about him more in a later portion because of what he said about President Trump this week. But he has been in there. He's one of the longest serving members of Congress as a senator. He's dying of brain cancer right now. He should have been out of there years ago, okay? But no one wanted to touch him because he was a political prisoner and served in our military, and thank God for that. Thank him for his service and everything. But that doesn't give you the right to get away with the stuff that he's been doing. He's been worse than some of the Democrats in there. People like him and Susan Collins and Lindsey Graham, if they were honest with themselves and with their constituents, would actually run as Democrats, but they don't. And that's why the Democrats love them, by the way. So Patrick is running for governor down in Kansas. Pro-life. Looks like he's a really good candidate. I need to do a little bit more research into him. I'm not, probably, to be honest with you, only because he's not running in my state. So that's on you, Kansas. And I really hope that you put someone good in, because we have a lot of really great Republican governors that have been doing great things. Jindal, you had Perry, now Abbott down in Texas that have been doing great things for years. All over the place. And then you look at liberal states like California and the way that their economy is failing and the homeless population is booming. You look at liberal run cities like San Francisco, Detroit, Baltimore, Philadelphia, all these cities that are under mass long-running liberal rule have been falling apart financially, with their education, socially, economically. It's been a mess. So why aren't people waking up to this and actually electing good people like Patrick here? How about this headline from the Washington Times? Climate skeptics are more eco-friendly than global warming alarmists, says a study. Al Gore has been accused of hypocrisy for talking the talk on climate change despite burning through fossil fuels at a rapid clip, but it turns out he's not alone. A study by Cornell, obviously not a very conservative place, and the University of Michigan researchers found that those highly concerned about climate change were less likely to engage in recycling and other eco-friendly behaviors than global warming skeptics. Published in the April edition of the Journal of Environmental Psychology, the one-year study broke 600 participants into 3 groups based on their level of concern about climate change: highly concerned, cautiously worried, and skeptical. The highly concerned cluster was most supportive of government's climate policies, but least likely to report individual level actions, whereas the skeptical opposed policy solutions, but were more likely to report engaging in individual level pro-environmental behaviors, according to the research. You can read it. Again, these are all articles that you can read. I'm not going out of thin air with this kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, I'll give you a personal example. A couple years ago, I went down to the 828 rally in Washington, D.C., and there were over 1 million people there. Okay, the numbers fluctuate all over the place, but if you actually look at an overhead aerial shot of the crowd and they show previous crowds and how big they were, it had to be over 1 million people for that. 1 million people in one spot on at the Lincoln Memorial there and everything. When we left there, all the trash cans were absolutely filled up with garbage, and what wasn't in the trash can was piled up around the trash can. And as you walked out of there, the lawn was spotless. Conservatives were more environmentally friendly, and you actually look at right down the street from that, the Al Sharpton led rally, whatever he was doing in memoriam of Martin Luther King. That produced a lot of trash all over the place from the people that participated in that. Point being, listen, people that are skeptics of global warming and climate change, as it's now called, because it fluctuates back and forth, that just because we're skeptics of global warming does not mean that we don't have this duty to take care of what God has given us as a gift to us. And I said God there, God forbid. So, yeah, we believe in taking care of the environment. No one wants to be jumping into an ocean filled with plastic bottles and things that are harming the fish or anything, or even seeping into our food supply because the fish are eating them. I mean, just south of Hawaii, or north of Hawaii, I forget, but there's a literal trash island because of the current flow of the ocean. It creates like a whirlpool effect, and all the trash gathers in this one spot, and it is literally a massive island that's bigger than the state of Hawaii that's floating out there of just plastic and garbage that's out there. It's disgusting. And just in case you didn't know, if you haven't tuned into the podcast before, one of my ideas was to create conveyor belts up into the Hawaiian volcanoes, one of which is active right now, and put this trash up into there and incinerate it. It just makes sense. But scientists don't want to listen to me. I don't know why. The Hawaii situation is pretty crazy right now, though, because they're expecting that to even get worse than it's already at right now. So they're saying we're better with the environment than the actual environmentalists. I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. From Louder with Crowder, single payer, the national healthcare system over in Europe and the UK recommends amputation instead of treatment for this girl's leg. Okay. Last year, this is getting into another recap of what happened last week. Last year, we talked about Charlie Gard, an infant that was basically sentenced to death by the UK health system and the Council for Human Rights, that basically deemed the child better off dead. That's literally, they literally said in the case of Charlie Gard, and last week and the week before, specifically Alfie Evans, who just recently died, they said that it is in the best interests of the child to die. Okay? Charlie Gard was in a vegetative state, but that was because the National Healthcare Service went for such a long, extended period of time not allowing the parents to seek alternative treatment in Italy, at the Vatican. Even President Trump offered to take him over here for alternative treatment at hospitals where this was actually being treated with other patients and had at least mild success. The kid ended up dying because they went too long without being able to get the treatment because they were deemed better off to die. Okay, and that's what happens. That's what happens with universal healthcare systems. You have death panels like the Council for Human Rights that look over the healthcare system with budget cuts and everything else in a socialist economic system, where they say, it's in the best interest of the child to die. Well, actually, no. What they're really trying to say is it's in the best financial interests of the taxpayers of this country to not keep up these types of life support systems for people, and instead, we're wasting so much money on the crap that comes along with this type of socialist system that it's better off to focus on the 18 to 45-year-olds. And if you're younger than 18, you never really lived your life anyway. If you're older than 45, you lived your life. So all those organs can be donated to the 18 to 45-year-olds. You have people, super gluing their teeth together because they can't get in to see a dentist appointment at all. In Canada, in their system, you have doctors that are forgoing pay raises because they want more nurses, because the nurses can't handle the overflow of patients due to a universal type system. And because of an overflow and lack of personnel, you have worse off care. You don't get the time necessary for the patients. So we had the Alfie Evans story last week. Unfortunately, just like Charlie Gard, he was denied the care elsewhere and alternative treatment and ended up dying as well. And I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the pictures to be released on him that shows the mold and mildew that was growing in his life support tubes. I'm waiting for the pictures of him being soaked in urine up to his armpits because the nurses weren't changing the bed sheets and everything, and also the pictures of the crusty buildup around the nose and mouth because they weren't taking good care of him. Now I'm getting attacked by people on YouTube, some people that say I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to this, when there's article after article, including articles from the BBC, from MSN. You can go to news sources all over the world, and most of them are going to be liberal, that were saying that these situations were actually true, and this is what was happening with Alfie Evans. They're trying to tell me now, I did not see any articles where they said that the Italian government was trying to get Alfie over there to not treat him, but experiment on him for this disease and use him as an experimentation specimen, basically. I haven't seen any articles on that, okay? So they're either blowing smoke or they have their own leftist version of Alex Jones that they're listening to. But now, boy, you would think between Alfie Evans and Charlie Gard, we went for a year there of not hearing anything from the National Healthcare Service as far as the type of mistreatment that they were using with the kids. You would think that we would get at least another year or so until we heard another case. But now we're hearing that instead of helping this little girl extend her leg, or lengthening process, they feel that it's necessary to just amputate it, just get rid of it. Who cares? Maybe her life isn't worth living because she has a shorter leg, So it says this is from Louder with Crowder, in our continuing coverage of the UK's healthcare system screwing over the kids, I give you this little girl's tale. This British lass has a deformity which makes one of her legs much shorter than the other. She went to the National Healthcare Service to have them fix her, and they wanted to chop off the leg. So it says here in the article that they quoted from, a schoolgirl with one leg shorter than the other has been told by the NHS her only option is amputation. However, a leading US surgeon claims that UK doctors have the training but not the confidence to save her limb by lengthening it, and that the NHS lacks the highly specialist rehabilitation services she needs after surgery. Dr. Dror Paley has told the parents of 7-year-old Kira Worrell, who was born with a rare condition affecting her thigh bone, that her treatment is straightforward. She wouldn't even have a limp once her leg lengthening surgeries are complete. So there you have it. So in this case now you have the UK system of health care, quotations around the care there because there isn't any, where they're just unwilling to try and actually help this little girl lengthen her leg so that she can have a normal life. Instead, they want to take the easy route and amputate it because they don't want to take the risk on it. And I'm personally just praying that they don't go to the length of saying that, just like Alfie Evans and Charlie Gard and everything, that these parents are unable to actually seek alternative treatment or care, because that would actually be completely ridiculous. But this is what it's coming to. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but it seems crazy to be talking about this stuff like it's such a foreign thing that these healthcare services would be doing this kind of stuff to kids and taking the rights away from parents and everything. I should have looked up the name. There's a girl that went to the Boston Children's Hospital 2 or 3 years ago. Her first name was Justine. And maybe someone can look that up while I'm actually doing this and tell me it. But I know her first name was Justine. And the hospital and city, I believe, took away the parents' rights because they wanted to seek alternative treatment or a second opinion. I think it was just a second freaking opinion. Took away the parents' rights, wouldn't let the parents in to see her, and she deteriorated over the time that she was in the hospital and wasn't getting the necessary treatment to continue with what was going on. They eventually got Justine back into their care after battling with the government and with the healthcare services of the Boston Children's Hospital in these secret courts where you don't even know what the heck, how to approach these secret courts because you don't know where they are. You don't know how to get in front of them or how to argue your case or anything. It took a long time for these parents to get her back. And when they finally did get her back, she's not the same kid anymore. They said that she is still recovering after getting the necessary treatment. Her psychological status, because of what the hospital put her and her family through, she is still not back up to par because of that. So if there's one thing I can tell you right now, it's that the UK, the people of the UK need to get their crap in order and start fighting back against the government and their socialized universal healthcare system and everything that goes along with it and say, this is not working, okay? The hospitals should not be taking the rights away from parents on what the parents should be able to deem necessary for their children. Now, if you're going to say, the parents are saying that they don't want to do any treatment at all, and they believe that doing some sort of witch doctor ritual around the kid is going to cure them or something. Okay, maybe I can see the hospital intervening or something like that. But if you're asking for alternative treatment or care, in the case of Alfie Evans and Charlie Gard, they were deemed better off to die. If that's the case, if they're better off dying and you're just going to let them die, then why not let the parents seek alternative care and take a chance? Isn't a child's life worth at least taking a chance on saving, for crying out loud? So if they're just seeking an alternative treatment to what's currently going on that may not be working, or they're looking for a second opinion, which is human nature when there's something that's drastic or catastrophic involved with healthcare, you should not be able to able to take the rights away from the parents and leave those children in a situation where they're going to die under your care. We have some notifications here. Let's see what's going on. Okay. All right. So an analysis, this is according to The Blaze, an analysis finds that Rosie O'Donnell regularly breaks campaign finance laws with oversized donations. Oh, we have a good comparison on this one. An analysis by the New York Post, another liberal magazine, so journalists are starting to wake up apparently, published Saturday that a revealing thing that said that liberal comedian Rosie O'Donnell has regularly broken campaign finance laws by over-donating to Democratic candidates. According to the Post analysis, O'Donnell has regularly broken a law that limits an individual's donations to just $2,700 per candidate per election. The limit applies separately to primaries, generals, and runoffs. It is not a cumulative limit. So her donations included $4,700 to Democrat Doug Jones for Alabama's special election. Excuse me, I'm stuttering. $3,600 to Democrat Connor Lamb's special election in Pennsylvania. $2,950 to Representative Adam Schiff. $4,200 to Lauren Underwood. $3,450 to Omar Vade. And according to the Post, O'Donnell together gave $5,400 beyond what is allowed by law. So the question is, will O'Donnell be prosecuted? While both campaigns and donors are responsible for following all campaign finance laws, experts told the Post that O'Donnell likely won't go to jail over donations. Donors are rarely fined for excess contributions, and then only if they are hiding the donations from the recipients. Campaigns generally are not penalized for isolated contributions over a limit. However, multiple excessive donations may lead to an investigation. Fines could result in such cases. I don't know if you remember this or not, but it was either last year or the year before, Dinesh D'Souza went to prison for breaking that campaign rule of donation limits. And he did it by accident, truly by accident. And here, O'Donnell, a lot of this happened after the Dinesh D'Souza, which was a major media event that was covered because he is such a leading conservative voice in the movement. To say that O'Donnell shouldn't be going to prison for the same thing that Dinesh did really shows the type of bias that we're dealing with here. Now, if that's not just amazing enough as it is, wait till you hear the types of excuses that Rosie O'Donnell throws out here. She said if $2,700 is the cutoff, candidates should refund the money. I don't look to see who I can donate most to. I just donate assuming they do not accept what is over the limit. My anxiety is quelled by donating to those opposing Trump and his agenda, especially at night when most of these were placed. So her excuse right now is, I just kind of figured that if it was over the donation limit, they would refund that portion to me. Well, if that's the case, if that's the excuse you're going to be running with and get away with, then Dinesh D'Souza should sue the government for a lot of money for charging him and putting him into prison, because he could claim the same thing. Rosie O'Donnell is a hypocrite and should definitely be going to prison for the exact same thing that Dinesh D'Souza did. And there, I didn't even take sides, saying that one shouldn't and one should. If that's the case, if that's the standard that you're going to set, do it to both. That's all I'm asking for. I think most of us are asking for. All right, we were talking about John McCain earlier. So another one, according to the Blaze here, ailing Republican Senator John McCain speaks his mind on Trump and 2008 running mate Sarah Palin. There's going to be some stuff to digest and dissect in this one. McCain is currently organizing his funeral and had his associates inform the White House that Trump is not invited, according to the New York Post. Instead, he asked Vice President Mike Pence, who the two served in Congress together, to attend. A stream of supporters and politicians have been visiting McCain at his Arizona ranch and at a nearby hospital in recent weeks, according to published reports. Included on that list have been former Vice President Joe Biden and former Senator Joe Lieberman of Connecticut. The 81-year-old McCain was hoping to return to the Senate, where he has served since 1987, but his health has prevented his return. In addition to undergoing cancer treatment and surgery, this is cancer on the brain, by the way, I believe, McCain had an intestinal infection last month. Still, McCain has finished work on his new book, The Restless Wave, and an HBO documentary about his life. He has also continued to express his longing for days when politicians could disagree without tearing each other apart, according to the report. So, it says the book, expected to be released later on this month, includes McCain's regrets, his battle with cancer, and his criticisms of Trump. So, he is going out of his way to make it a point to say that Trump shouldn't, I don't want Trump at my funeral. Dude, you're dead at that point, okay? Like, what do you care anymore? All right? And let's be honest, Trump probably wouldn't have shown up to your funeral anyway. So the fact that you are saying this is just trying to take political jabs at Trump while you're still alive because of the nasty things that he said about you being a POW when you were serving. And I get it. What he said was detestable. It was gross to say that you don't consider someone a hero that was captured because they got captured, right? I mean, whatever his exact statement was stupid to say. But you're taking a grudge a little too far, and you're trying to make this about your funeral. I mean, my word, this is kind of like a disgusting thing. He's the president of the United States. Well, I would be honored if Obama attended my funeral, you know? He won't. Obama don't love me. So what else does McCain regret? Well, McCain ran against and lost to Barack Obama during the 2008 presidential race. Former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin was McCain's pick for vice president, but in his book, McCain laments about not choosing Joe Lieberman instead. Joe Lieberman was a Democrat who then became an independent. What I believe it was from New Hampshire. I think it was from New Hampshire. So you're running against an ultra left progressive liberal in Barack Obama, and your right counter to that is a wishy-washy Republican that votes along with Democrats most of the time, with a running mate who used to be a Democrat and now is an independent that definitely votes mostly liberal. I mean, that's why at the time I was so frustrated with that election, because the country was going to be screwed either way by liberal policies, whether it was coming from McCain or from Barack Obama. Now, you can go back. I should have actually downloaded and played the political campaign ads from McCain that he was originally running against Barack Obama, saying, or I'm sorry, against his health care. So this was in the midterms after the presidential election. He was saying, this person that I'm running against won't do anything. I am against Obamacare, and I will vote against Obamacare. Well, if you remember correctly, we needed one vote, John McCain's vote, to get it so that Obamacare wouldn't pass. And instead, he voted against the party, and we got this monstrosity that destroyed the healthcare system and continues to destroy the healthcare system today. You can blame and credit John McCain for that. And again, I feel sorry that he's dying of cancer. I'm a cancer survivor myself. But just because you're going through something horrible doesn't give you the right to screw over the American people and be viewed as a hero all the time as a politician. I thank you for your service. I feel bad that you're going through what you're going through with cancer, but you are a horrible politician and should have been out of there decades ago. And by the way, if we're really going to look at Lieberman as a choice, let's be honest about what actually happened during that election. A lot of us probably regret being a supporter of Sarah Palin now. I'm still a big supporter of her daughter, Bristol. Sarah's pretty good looking too. But the fact of the matter is, John McCain had nothing going for him. If you want to talk about the most vanilla, down-the-line candidate with no excitement at all, it was John McCain, rivaled only by his fellow and Mitt Romney, and people like that, where it's just like no excitement there at all. The only thing that injected an excitement into the party was when he announced Sarah Palin and she started making those speeches and railing against the left and Barack Obama and Joe Biden and everything, and her takedowns of Joe Biden in the VP debates and everything. That election was not an election between John McCain and Barack Obama. That was an election between Sarah Palin and Obama, between a vice president and a president. If it wasn't for Sarah Palin, the Republican Party would have lost by even more, by an even longer shot. But you can disagree with me if you want, and you can comment about it if you deem so necessary. But I believe I'm right. Billy's joined the podcast. I'm sure he would join in that too. All right. An 11-year-old has been docked points for not bashing Trump. Here's our two upcoming articles on indoctrination within our schools. This brought to you by homeschooling, which you should definitely do. This coming from PJ Media, and let's see who the writer is so we give them the appropriate credit. Tom Knighton, okay? To say that some people dislike Donald Trump may well be the understatement of the year. It's hard to imagine any duly elected president seeing so many protests, yet here we are. It's so bad that now an 11-year-old in Annandale, New York, was docked 15 points on a homework assignment because she failed to answer a question demanding students bash Trump. Vincent Ungro, a dad from Annandale, New York, has an 11-year-old daughter who attends... let's give appropriate credit here too. This is from LifeZet, okay? The website LifeZet. A dad from Annandale, New York, has an 11-year-old daughter who attends IS, or intermediate school 75. She asked him for help with her vocabulary homework last Friday night because she was trying to fill in the blanks from a word bank to complete her assignment and was really puzzled. This is what the homework said in, and I quote, "President Trump speaks in a very superior and blank manner, insulting many people. He needs to be more blank so that the American people respect and admire him." The next question was, Barack Obama set a blank when he became the first African-American president. And what were the choices for the 2 words, you ask? These 3 words: haughty, humble, and precedent. And you can guess which ones were meant to be the correct answers in the teacher's mind. Ungro, 46, told his daughter not to fill in those blanks and wrote a note to the teacher, Adria Zawatsky, on the homework sheet. As the Post noted, it said, quote, "Please keep your political views to yourself and do not try to influence my children on them. Thank you." The teacher docked the points, which Ungro called vindictive. The teacher then emailed Ungro and defended her question, stating that she was addressing his personality rather than his ability to serve in the office of president. Then she went on to add that the media makes similar references to Trump and that she believes that she has the same right. So she is exercising her First Amendment right there, and she has all the right to do that. No. No, I don't believe that you do. The media has the right to do that because the First Amendment specifically addresses the press and everything. Yes, you do have the right to have your own opinion on Trump, but you do not have the right to indoctrinate students within the classrooms. This is just a failure on the educator's part right here. This is the exact type of indoctrination that we've been warning about for years, and we've given example after example. It's almost become a weekly thing now where we keep on pointing out failures in the education system. Last week, the podcast was about the 8th grade proficiency in math and reading being 65% of 8th graders in the United States are not proficient in math and reading. You had the kid that walked out for the Second Amendment protest against the Second Amendment that, they're protesting that kids are getting killed. He walks out, he gets hit by a car out in traffic. The school had an obligation to be protecting these kids, not allow them to participate in this protest and walk out, and the kid got freaking killed. This is what's happening in our educational system right now, indoctrination and not caring for the actual students, okay? And I'm not blaming the teachers, I'm blaming the system. I think there's a lot of great teachers out there that do deserve more pay. That's a whole other topic right there. But the fact of the matter is, the standards, the policies, the requirements coming down from the federal and state government have been squashing teachers' abilities to actually perform and be creative anymore. And then even when you do have an opportunity to be creative or teach without the mandate from the government and everything, you have teachers that are forcing their opinion down the children's throats. This goes all the way back to the Boy Scouts of America and raising principled and moral people, okay? We need an opportunity to teach children how to think for themselves instead of how to think. Teachers should feel, I'm not saying that they're obligated to do that, they should feel the obligation to teach down the center when it comes to political and religious and other types of things like global warming. This should be an exercise in challenging students. Teaching down the line, this is what one side feels on the situation, this is what the other side feels on the situation. Now that we've gone over both and being respectful to both of those opinions, where do you fall? And once you get their opinion from them, back it up in writing and put together a report on why you feel that is the right decision. And then on top of that, not having a person like this teacher grade against that person because of their opinion. If they can support their opinion, no matter how crazy it is, if they have ways of backing that up, that is teaching a child on how to make decisions and back up their arguments. That is exactly what education should be about. It should be about molding minds to be able to think on their own, not cookie cutter versions of students and pushing them out into public as drones based on what you think is right. That's indoctrination story number 1. How about this one? Oh, you know what? Hold on a second. So there's a school mural that is now being ordered to be taken down because of the art that's depicted on it against our president. So let's take a look at, let's see here. I can actually, hopefully. This is the mural that's on a school property right now where you kind of have a tribal stuff going on and warriors and stuff. And one of the warriors has a spear going through the back of a beheaded Trump, through the back of his head and out of his mouth. And he's decapitated and there's blood coming out. You know, the type of just nice thing, nice family-friendly thing that you would find on a school playground, right? So I'm going to leave that up there. School officials in Southern California, go figure, this week ordered part of a mural to be covered because the artwork showed President Donald Trump's severed head on the end of a spear. After complaints from the community, the mural was initially covered with plastic on Wednesday, then later covered with plywood, according to the San Diego Union Tribune. Obviously, there's a lot of concern over what is depicted, Manny Rubio, public information officer for the Sweetwater Union High School District in San Diego County, told the paper. Artist Sasha Andrade has agreed to change the painting to, quote, better align with the school's philosophy. Well, what the hell was the school's philosophy before if this is what was depicted? Yeah. MAAC is a nonprofit that oversees the school, which is independently run, not governed by the district's board of trustees, according to the paper. The artist took to social media to defend the work, which shows 3 warriors, one gripping a sword, another grasping a heart, and a third clutching the spear with the president's severed head. She said, they can try to hashtag censor it, but here it is, guys, she wrote on a post on Facebook with a photo of the mural. She added, let's make this viral. So, classless, true, yes. Disgusting human being, I would probably vote for her under that category. Insane leftist who believes that she can hide behind the moniker of artist because she wants to throw out her political opinion of absolute vile hatred and disguise it as artistry. Yeah, I think that's where we're going with this. So you have that. So that is on a school mural right now and is currently covered and has to be reworked, obviously, to get rid of that. This is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. When I talk about the left going out of their gourd and losing all respect from... They are currently molding future generations that they hope with this stuff will turn future generations that are coming up right now into liberal progressive soldiers, okay? But instead, I think, and the statistics are pointing to, the newest generation of kids coming up being more conservative. Why is that? Because they're seeing their parents wearing pussy hats. They see that if parents don't get their way, they throw a tantrum and go out in the streets and riot and throw Molotov cocktails into businesses that of hardworking people that work their whole life to achieve the American dream, and instead watch it burn down because a bunch of pansies didn't get their way in an election result. Okay? You see people like this who are putting up art depicting the president being beheaded. You have Kathy Griffin, who's holding up a decapitated mask of Trump and then whining and complaining that her career was ruined by Trump and his supporters because she was doing something artistic. You have these children that are growing up right now seeing the absolute lunacy of the left and all the stuff that they're doing. The fact that they are not acting like adults when they should be acting like adults. And they're saying, I want no part of that. I want to be the exact opposite of that. I do not want, when your parents' tantrums outweigh your tantrums as a kid, and you're sitting there watching them throwing themselves around on the sofa and on the floor and everything, it's time to reevaluate where your affiliations lie, both religiously, politically, and culturally, okay? But there you have it. They're supposedly going to change it. And I'm guessing, since it's in California, they're just going to make it into another anti-Trump mural just without him actually being decapitated. Okay, let's get to the last topic here. UC Berkeley, according to the Blaze, coordinated campaign to bring right-wing speakers on campus caused acute distress. Yeah. And cry closets. They need to set up cry closets, probably. A free speech report from the University of California, Berkeley, released this week, said a coordinated campaign to invite controversial right-wing guest speakers on campus in 2017 caused acute distress among students and staff. staff. So once again, adults that should know free speech and be able to handle their crap and keep their emotions together. So it was an attempt to advance a narrative that colleges are, quote, not tolerant of conservative speech. So to battle that narrative didn't work out too well. Things heated up in February 2017 when riots broke out at UC Berkeley, long associated with the 1960s free speech movement. The UC Berkeley is where free speech on campus started, and we have come that far now, where just the mention of Ben Shapiro or Milo Yiannopoulos or anyone else from the right showing up onto the campus causes protests, and again, fires started, cars overturned, and people stomping out and smashing windows and stuff like that. Security concerns to the point where, I don't know if it was UC Berkeley or another college campus, where Ben Shapiro had to personally hire 600 security guards because the school wouldn't pay for it to cover the cost, which wasn't even deemed actually necessary, just deemed by the university necessary for him to speak, which was biased towards a conservative speaker. Anyway, things heated up in February of 2017 when riots broke out at UC Berkeley, long associated with the 1960s free speech movement, over a planned speech by alt-right figure Milo Yiannopoulos, which led the school to cancel the event. Republican President Donald Trump then threatened to defund the college. Absolutely. I still think it should be done. That's just the way it is. If you can't promote a constitutional right granted to you as a protection from the government or the organizations that you are attending, like a college, then why is the government even supporting you in any financial manner? 2 months later, conservative pundit Ann Coulter nixed her planned speech on campus. She had previously insisted that she would give her lecture despite the school canceling her appearance and then rescheduling it for a date in May when there were no classes. Well, she was obviously trying to get away with something there that didn't work out too well. So, let's see here. Other flare-ups against free speech at Berkeley made headlines last year, including left-wing vandals targeting Berkeley College Republicans and rioting in town that saw protesters beating up pro-Trump demonstrators and ripping up free speech signs. You know what Antifa stands for? Is anti-fascist, yet they use fascist means to battle against it. So they're ripping up free speech signs and beating up the supporters of a different ideology. That is the definition of fascism. So what did the report say? Contrary to a currently popular narrative, Berkeley remains a tolerant campus. The report asserted, according to the outlet. The report also noted a survey that found 75% of incoming freshmen last fall agree that the school has the responsibility to provide equal access to safe and secure venues for guest speakers of all viewpoints, even if the ideas are found offensive by some or conflict with the values held by the UC Berkeley community. The report added that unrest surrounding the Yiannopoulos and Coulter events were sponsored by a very small group of students working closely with outside organizations. George Soros. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Although those speakers had every right to speak and were entitled to protection, they did not need to be on campus to exercise the right of free speech. So, this is what UC Berkeley is basically saying here. They're saying, yes, we believe in free speech. Yes, you have the right to say whatever you want, but you don't have to say it on our campus. You should say it off of this campus. You have the right to say whatever you want outside of this campus. So does the campus really promote free speech? No, because they're not allowing it on their campus. They want it to be, yes, out there. Please go to your conservative safe space over there on the corner and do your free speech over there. The report continued. Indeed, at least some of the 2017 events at Berkeley can now be seen be seen to be part of a coordinated campaign to organize appearances on American campuses likely to incite a violent reaction in order to advance a facile narrative that universities are not tolerant of conservative speech. Well, yeah, okay, so one of the movies that's coming out soon is no safe space or something like that campuses. It's Dennis Prager and Adam Carolla working on a movie. Look up the trailer for that. It's about how free speech is not allowed on campus anymore, and they went around specifically to prove that and have speeches on campuses and everything. A coordinated event to go on the campuses? Yeah, because we're living in a time right now where leftist speeches are promoted and held up, and speeches from the right, people on the right, are squashed down. And you have these false narratives that are out there in society in regards to politics and religion and cultural events and everything that keep on getting... It's the fake news. It's exactly what it is. It's the fake news stuff that keeps on going, that they keep on getting these false narratives out there that people keep on believing. Like we were talking about the pay gap earlier between men and women, that just keep on getting perpetuated over and over again because they feel like if you tell a lie enough times, eventually it's going to stick and will be seen as truth, even if it isn't truth, right? Well, in this case, that it was likely to incite a violent reaction? No. Was it expected? Yes, because that's the way that the left responds to things, okay? They get violent against things that they don't like. They try to shut it down. They are fascist in the way that they oppose opinions. So it was expected, yes, but was it meant to incite? No. And yes, no, universities are not tolerant of free speech. The report also said that Yiannopoulos and Coulter expressed little interest in reasoned discussion of contentious issues or in defending or revising their views through argument. They expressed... Okay, so let me take the first part of that sentence because it kind of runs on to include the last part of the sentence. This is the most important part. They expressed little interest in... last part, revising their views through argument. Well, they were there to promote their argument and their view. So why would they express an interest in changing their view? As far as defending or getting into a discussion, I've seen many events from Milo Yiannopoulos and Ben Shapiro that after their discussion, they ask people to line up and specifically ask for those that disagree with them to go first in the questioning before they get to the people that actually agree with them, because it's more fun to argue against the people that disagree because it's so easy to prove them wrong on everything. I'm saying that to incite some discomfort. More from the UC Berkeley report, according to the outlet. Many commission members are skeptical of these speakers' commitment to anything other than the pursuit of wealth and fame through the instigation of anger, fear, and vengefulness in their hard right constituency. No, the only way to get the political message out there from the right is to get out there in front of the children, because they're being indoctrinated in schools, which we just learned more about tonight, especially in universities. I mean, we're talking, there's so many cases. We've talked so many cases before. The most recent one as far as university level was that Fresno professor who's now no longer in the country because her tweets about Barbara Bush were so offensive. You have indoctrinations at all levels in education, and we're trying to incite something because we're trying to get where the kids are to have a counter message promoted. If you actually listen to these right-wing speakers, besides Milo, who is a fire starter, and I actually kind of like that myself every now and then, most of these are laying out facts and statistics that support their argument, not trying to be confrontational, argumentative, or use fear or anger with anything. They're just trying to get their points across, a different type of ideology, something to open the minds. As Kanye has been saying, we just want more thinkers in society, for crying out loud, just more free thought. Going on here, speech of this kind is hard to defend, especially in light of the acute distress it caused and was intended to cause to staff and students, many of whom felt threatened and targeted by the speakers and by the outside groups of financing their appearances. Let's break that down. Speech of this kind is hard to defend. No, it's not. It's easy to defend. Just as easy as the left defends their arguments. It's just it's a political ideology and argument. especially in the light of the acute distress it caused. No, it caused distress because we have too many snowflakes in society that can't listen to an opposing opinion. They believe in the tolerance of other people unless it goes against what they personally believe. Does anybody? Yeah. Anyway, moving on. The report added that many students and staff felt threatened, not just by the message of the speakers, but by the large police presence required to assure everyone's safety. Well, of course, yeah, the police are, ever since Obama's presidency, that was one of the battles in the Obama administration. The police against minorities, the rich against the poor, the white against the black, the wage gap between men and women. I mean, there were so many divides put into place under the Obama administration that he promoted personally that, of course, we have a generation of people now that are scared of police. Instead of looking at them and thanking them for their service, thank you for being here to be security for the rest of us, instead they look at them like they're about to hit them with a baton at any given moment, because that's the narrative that's pushed out there. Big thank you to my police officer friends out there, and security people, and personnel like firefighters and ambulance drivers and everything else. So that's it for tonight. There's more on that article if you want to look it up. Like I said, that last one is on The Blaze. It's called UC Berkeley Coordinated Campaign to Bring Right-Wing Speakers on Campus Caused Acute Distress. So listen, want to get back to this because this is the last time that I'm actually going to be talking to you on the podcast before next week's rally. We do have the rally coming up next week at Relic Hunter Firearms in Copley, Pennsylvania, which is near Whitehall, Pennsylvania, and that will be the Second Amendment rally happening at the same time as many other Second Amendment rallies going on across the nation, kind of in a response to what's been going on recently with the anti-gun or gun control type rallies around the country and school walkouts and everything else. It's come to a time where we have to defend the Constitution, the one thing that separates our country from every other country out there and grants us rights and protections from the government instead of the opposite. We now have people arguing for our rights to be taken away instead of more rights granted to us. Go figure, that's the type of environment we're in America right now. So I would encourage you, if you live in Pennsylvania or in the tri-state area, come out to any of the Second Amendment rallies. But certainly if you live within driving distance of Copley, Pennsylvania, I will be at Relic Hunter Firearms next Saturday from noon until about 4 o'clock is when the event's going on. Relic Hunter has a candy shop of firearms for any of the Second Amendment lovers out there. People that support the Second Amendment. That includes Democrats, and I hope to see Democrats there. If you're a Democrat, by the way, and you support the Second Amendment, please show up, because I want to make an example and hold you up as someone that can have an opposing opinion but still support the Constitution. So I hope to see you there as well. That is from noon until 4 at Relic Hunter Firearms next Saturday, May 19th in Copley, Pennsylvania. I want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Again, if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Facebook, The Generation Y Conservative. Go to the page, like the page, and get notifications. We post all the articles throughout the week as far as articles that we deem are things that you should know about or that we find interesting, or funny articles. We try to make the podcast as funny as possible. So we try to find funny topics to talk about, technology news, the movie reviews. It's all good stuff. Go to YouTube, search for The Generation Y Conservative. You can find the podcast and our movie reviews on there, as well as the upcoming events like I told you about with Relic Hunter. We're going to be featuring weekly segments on short clips on guns that they're featuring, that they're selling, that are available in used and at the firing range. So that'll be really cool once we get that started. So look for that. We'll announce when that's going to be starting up in future podcasts. You can also find me on Twitter at Gen Y Conservative without the E on the end, and interact with me there. By the way, one of the things I forgot to mention at the beginning of the podcast in regards to the audio only version, if you're looking to listen to something at work or anything like that, you can re-listen to this podcast at KLRN Internet Radio on Sundays from 3 to 6 p.m. And they've also been gracious enough to put me on the iTunes and iHeartRadio. So if you subscribe to podcasts, you can actually get the podcast there as well. Subscribe to it, listen to it. I get great feedback. I get personal messages. By the way, I've been getting some really great messages from new supporters to the page through the messaging system. I love hearing from you guys. If I don't respond to you right away, certainly, just hang tight and everything. I love hearing from you. I'm getting a mix of backgrounds of people that are coming to the page and supporting it. I've had liberals in the past that were really getting involved with it and everything, and I appreciate that. I appreciate conversation. I am, one thing I would like to point out actually is last week I posted an article about something, and a liberal got involved and said, "Oh, I'm sorry I even said anything because I didn't realize what kind of page this was. I shouldn't have even gotten involved at all." No, if you're a liberal and you want to express your opinion without being demeaning or rude about it, if you want to lay out why you feel a certain way and back it up with statistics and facts or anything, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to have an open discussion with people, and if need be, we'll bring it up as a topic on one of the upcoming podcasts. Sometimes that's really interesting to do. So again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening. It's always appreciated. We will keep the podcast going, and certainly share the podcast because we want to make this thing grow as much as possible. I have a feeling personally that this podcast is going to grow by leaps and bounds by the end of next week with the rally next week. Like I said, the radio station's going to be there covering it, so they're going to hear about it. We're going to put it on to YouTube. All the people in attendance there are going to see it. So get involved now. I'm loving the base that I currently have already. So have a great night, and God bless America.